won't leave me alone. Will you see yourself back in the sun? The light it stings while the night it sings to me. An abnormal hell, a story I can't tell, but they'll see the gift they've given to me. I could step aside, I could end this life, but this disease, it won't release, it won't be cured by the night. I guess I'm never coming back.
Good evening and welcome to the SPbN By Night Twitch channel where we play Petersburg By Night, a massive multiplayer 5th edition World of Darkness chronicle set in the city of St. Petersburg, Florida. My name is Kent, also known as Kent on all social media. I am the lead storyteller of SPbN By Night, but tonight I play the role of host because it's Saturday night and that means it's time for After Dark, our behind the scenes program where we talk to the players, we talk to the storytellers, we talk to movers and shakers within the World of Darkness who make this game a possibility. Not just SPbN By Night, but games all across the stratosphere of World of Darkness. And I'm so pleased to have one of those in my mind, movers and shakers, with me here tonight. Tonight we are talking to Desdemona of Rose City and Beyond. They are a storyteller over on Start Playing where they host some professionally hosted games. They also have a very awesome YouTube channel that I expect everyone to go follow after watching this broadcast because the content in there is bar none. It is enjoyable. I've gotten a chance to watch some of the videos and I absolutely love the unique format they take. So head over there and check that out. There are going to be links below in the description of this video. And let's say hi to our wonderful guest. Hello, and take it away. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you. I'm Desdemona, as you so kindly introduced, host of Rose City and Beyond, which is home to Rose City at Twilight and Portland by Night. I've been a storyteller for as long as I can remember. My, stepdad handed me a book a long time ago, and I never put the damn thing down.
Well, let's get into that because I always find origin stories to be some of the best stories. Like, how do people come upon this weird and wild hobby of TTRPGs? How do people then take it a step further and get involved in the World of Darkness? So let's hear your story. When did you first discover TTRPGs, and did you have any kind of like preconceived notions about them? Because I know when I was growing up, people had a lot of beliefs about Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. But like, what was your experience like? I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. My stepdad was really into tabletop role-playing games when he was in high school, and he always tell me the stories of the adventures on the mountains where they found a wand and thought it was a wand, it was a laser pistol, accidentally wiped out the whole party. And like, these are the stories that I thought of, that I knew about when I came into TTRPGs. I never heard of, the Satanic Panic at that point. Like, I was handed the advanced D&D monster manual and given like a notebook that my stepdad gave me for like how to run the monsters, a step-by-step flowchart. And my brother and I had just play, and mostly it was, us just drawing swords and making stories up together, but really, still doing that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, and I think that's a beautiful thing about the TTRPG experience. It takes something so simple as the idea of playing pretend, which I think all of us at one point or another did growing up, or theater, or just all of the childhood games. They gave them rules, they gave them structure, and
gave little math rocks.
Yeah, and imagination is such an important part of the storytelling experience. So I think that it's a beautiful thing when you can get started young while that's still a very fresh concept.
And it must have been like 8 or 9.
Yeah. Oh, that's so incredible. So you got involved, you started running your own games at such a young age, which is incredible.
Well, running games is an exaggeration at that point.
Right,
I
but
started really running games when I was about 13. When I got with my when I got with all my high school buddies, my middle school buddies at that point, and we had the third edition books, and I mean they were like $40 a piece, and they were all I wanted for Christmas. My birthday is right
absolutely.
next to Christmas, so I just got a stack of them that I still have to this day.
Oh, yeah, the collection starts young, but it's so much more exciting when you start to get your
Oh yeah.
grown-up money and can buy them when they come out
Oh
and collect them all. I know that's been a biggest one of the biggest
no, I
joys
gotta
for me of
say,
being an adult.
I'm disabled, so I'm on a bit of a restricted income. But the spare money from start playing games has been just wondrous. I reached out and I bought the Hunter the Reckoning 5e book that I've been wanting
Yes.
for a while.
Oh, that
But
sounds great.
I started with the D&D 3 with D&D 3.0. I was around when it turned into 3.5.
Yep, I remember that.
And I just kept running that forever. I made up my own game world and just persistent players acting upon it, and I just gained such a proficiency because I would delve so deep into it. The best way, in my opinion, to learn something is to either teach somebody or try to build something with it.
Yes.
If I want to understand the world, I'll just build one.
Yeah, absolutely. You can create your own worlds. You can practice and kind of do some experiments. As weird as that sounds, you can try different social dynamics,
Yeah,
and you can really, it teaches a lot about empathy. It teaches a lot about, you know, putting yourself in someone else's shoes and walking
yeah,
around a little bit, and a lot of social dynamics. I think it's one of the best teaching tools for social skills that
yeah,
is in a safe, controlled environment. Yeah, it's fantastic for that. Absolutely.
absolutely. Social skills for the players and for the DM, but for the DM,
100%.
really, the skills are fractal because, like, I went to a geology class like in college just so I could try to build the crust of my new world that I was making.
You
Like,
learn so much. Yeah, you
I
take all
learned
those
so much
skills.
just as inspiration. And another thing, another one that my stepdad always talked about was, the Vampire the Masquerade.
Oh, so
Uh,
that's how you first got exposed to World of Darkness, was through the stepdad. That's
so
awesome.
as, yeah, yeah, he mentioned it, and he got Vampire the Masquerade Redemption as a video game, and my brother and I weren't allowed to play it, and I was mad about that for years. So I never ended up beating that one. I've heard it's great, but I never ended up beating it. But I did get Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, played that, and I mean it's that rumor that folk wisdom that every time you mention it, somebody's gonna reinstall it.
Oh, for sure. And I love that
Yeah,
you can still play it to this very day, that the passion and love for that game has kept it
yeah.
alive well beyond its years. I mean, it's been almost 25
Oh my god,
years
yeah,
now, and it's still running strong. It's still a lot of people's
yeah.
favorite video game.
2004.
Yep. That's unbelievable, and it's such a good game. It's probably
Yeah.
my favorite RPG video
Oh
game
yes,
bar none, and I'm really excited for Bloodlines too, even though I have a lot of hesitation about it because it has been 20 years.
yes,
And so
yes.
that's, you know, that's a scary thought, but I'm so glad to hear that that was kind of an entry point for you,
Yeah,
because I've heard that from so many people that that was where they got their first experience of the setting and really got involved with it. So that's very, very cool. So
so
yeah,
I
go.
took a break every now and then from my Dungeons and Dragons to play with every now and then I could get a group of people who were interested together, and we'd play a vampire game where I played a total fishmalk, like just the worst Malkavian. But I don't know, we had a great time about it, and moved into werewolf. I had a really interesting game with a friend of mine who ran like 10 people at a time games in his like backyard, and the werewolf game that he ran really got me hooked into the setting.
Oh, the werewolf setting's incredible. I get to run the werewolf
Oh,
chronicle here on St. Pete, and I absolutely
oh,
adore it. I adore it, and I adore the changes they made with fifth edition. And it's a really incredible game. And but that's a testament to the World of Darkness as a whole. You know, the
yeah,
fact that they've created this incredible setting, a different take on role playing games for people who like, you know, a little bit more horror, a little bit more
yeah,
grounded material, a little
yeah.
less fantasy. It's a fantastic setting. What hooked you most about the World of Darkness, though? What was it about vampire or werewolf or
Ah,
hunter that really brought you in and keeps you so firmly attached to it to this day?
see, I think there's a lot of things, but the core, most visceral is the origin story of vampires in World of Darkness. That's the origin story I was taught as a child. Is where do vampires come from? Oh, Cain killed Abel, and now he's cursed with vampirism. And I remember getting so pissed when Blade 3 came out and Dracula was the original vampire.
Ugh.
Like, dude, he's like 400 years old, baby.
We could trace his origins. Come
The
on.
antediluvians would eat him.
Well, and that's another incredible thing about the World of Darkness setting is that they did make sure that it was very grounded in culture. It was grounded in religion.
Yes.
They call from real life, real world events, real world time periods and
Yeah.
settings, and they make it feel like that there's this secret society beneath it all. You know, all the
Yeah.
conspiracy theorists out there should love this game because it does say, hey, there is something more. There's an explanation behind the things that happen to us, the things that we see
Yeah.
and don't see. And the idea of these puppet masters controlling the
Yep.
universe but warring amongst each other. It's just this incredible concept to the point that, like, you can get so immersed. You can see the world and be like, that's a
Yep.
Toreador Haven. That's a Venture Business. That's a,
Yep.
like, you start to project onto the world and it makes
But
sense.
but see, that's where I get so much of my inspiration from because I grew up in Portland. Like it's my home. I know the city. I feel like I know the city like the back of my hand. And running the game in this place lets me look into the histories of different places. Some of the Lone Fir Cemetery and the Asylum Wing that was demolished and only recently like brought back up. Such a great place for wraiths.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
there's it the other thing that really keeps me hooked with the World of Darkness and the Vampire the Masquerade specifically is the end times. The idea that this publisher, this company was like, all right, we've been promising the apocalypse for a while now. Our sales are starting to dip, so let's go out with a bang.
Let's do it. Let's lean in and take it out. And while
Exactly.
that had its fair share of controversy among the community, because I know that, you know, we as a culture, as a society, get really attached to things and don't want to
Yep.
let them go. That's where we get sequels on sequels on sequels
Yep.
of movies and reboots of TV shows. But I do appreciate when a creator is willing to bring the end to their own creation. You know,
Yep.
when they are willing to write the ending, regardless of what people think, regardless of
Yeah.
whether people agree with it. I mean, storytellers, gamers have always had the ability to create their own worlds, their own endings. So if they don't like
Yeah.
what's written, they can still do their own thing. But I do like that element in World of
Yeah.
Darkness that there's no happy ending. You're not going to get a happy ending for anyone because it is going to be the apocalypse or Gehenna or, you know, the end times. And that does encourage the horror element. It does encourage the horror aspect of like, make the best of it while you got it because it's not going to last forever. And they
But
do that really well in the writing.
I also love that they brought it back.
Yes.
That I plan to run my games year by year from 97 all the way up through 2024 now. Like all the
Yeah.
way up to modern day. And it's going to go through 2005, which, if you know the World of Darkness timeline,
It's a
2005
big year.
is the end.
Yeah.
That is when the game lines decided that they would end.
So
And
you
what
are
happens?
you're incorporating a lot of the old lore and a lot of
Yes.
kind of the pre-written material into your world, as well as the newer material that's been written since from 5th edition. You're kind of
Yeah.
making an amalgam of all of it, and I love that you started in the 90s. What was the
Yes.
inspiration behind that? Because that was the heyday of vampire, as we
Yep.
both know. That's when it was at its peak, its most popular. What made you
Yep.
choose that time period specifically?
Uh, Quite a few reasons, but first, I know at best it was my childhood. Second, look, kid, we're in a world of cell phone cameras. Fuck ups ain't tolerated.
It's true.
Back in 1997,
It was a lot
we didn't
easier to be a
have cell
vampire.
phone cameras. And so I think that starting it out sort of easy mode, that this is like, no, they can't look you up on Google. No, they're gonna have to go to a freaking phone book or get a private investigator. They're not gonna be able to just, hack into a server somewhere and they see you through your webcam. No,
Right.
no, like these people have paper files in buildings that can burn down.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's a great introductory period for
Yes.
people, because it was a lot easier. It was a lot easier to be a supernatural creature in those days. The freedom of information was a lot more limited. The ability to track and follow and monitor people was a lot more limited. And now it's,
Yeah.
a much more expansive and a lot more
Yeah.
invasive time period to be alive
Yeah.
in.
Let's be
Uh,
honest, pre 2011 or pre 2001, the security state was nothing like it is today.
yeah, the world really, really changed. How much research, using your own, memory, but also how much research do you put into, uncovering a specific time period? Like, do you research music of the time? Do you look into like what the state of things was at the time, or do you just kind of use creative license and do what you can remember with a mix of what you want to have happen? How do you go about creating that kind of feeling in that time period?
See, it tends to depend on how significant the story beat is. If it's a significant story beat, I wanna incorporate the politics of the era. I want to go on Google Earth and go look back at past maps to see like how the place has changed over time. Make sure that building was still there at that time period. One of my current quests for my Portland by Night characters has them going to an art gallery hosted by the Portland Institute for Contemporary Arts. And I went and looked at their list of people that they've had at their galleries, their pop-up galleries, and I cross-referenced that with with painters who were active in 1997 because a Toreador Baron wants a painter.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. And I love that you put that level of detail into it, because I think there is a really unique opportunity for us as storytellers to use a variety of skills. We can be historians, we can be geologists like you were
Yep.
talking about. We can create and we can grow and we can tap into almost any field to add more depth and more substance to
Whatever you
our
can make narratively
creations.
interesting.
Absolutely. And I love that, incorporating who were the painters of the time,
Yeah.
who would have been around and moving, and taking that creative license is so, so cool. So you chose Portland because it's your hometown. Are there any other cities that you would have interest in running in, or do you find that you have everything you need just around you?
See, Portland is such a great city for this because it's half a forest and half a city.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there are waterfalls within an hour's drive. Within an hour and a half, you've got the ocean. There's desert in eastern Oregon. Like, we've got all sorts of places. I've got a big old map behind me of all the little characters, and
Yeah, you can
I,
call upon all the different settings and splats too, like because you
yeah,
have werewolves in the woods. You've got, like you
yeah,
said, the asylum. You can call upon wraiths. You
uh-huh.
have
Some
access to almost
Rokia at the
everything.
coast.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's so great and so incredible. And Portland is a good city for it because it's an evolving city. It's changed.
Hmm.
It's gone through so many renditions and so many versions of what the city is.
And
And I'm sure
especially
that's, yeah, go ahead.
especially in the late 90s,
Yes.
because at this point, like the city population is increasing and tech is moving in. So you've got the sort of punk weird Portland of the 80s and the tech Portland of the 2000s. And right in between there you've got the 90s. And the the anarchists are still trying to push out the new tech money, but the tech money is being accepted wholeheartedly by the city. So I sort of really reflect that in my factions in the West Side Camarilla, who just moved back in, and the sort of East Side Anarchs, who are slowly falling one by one to the Camarilla, not through force, but out of convenience and out of an unwillingness to commit atrocities. And as someone who's experienced some of the political turmoil of Portland, the the pushback between those who just want things to get better and those who want things to get better at any cost.
Yes, absolutely.
And those are sort of the two sides of the anarchs to this point. That some of them are starting to fall to the Camarilla just because, hey, cameras are getting better. Like maybe we could use some of these resources when dealing with police and reporters and stuff like that.
Well, and you've got also the Camarilla is like the government. It's the most established, quote unquote, unified power that has the most resources at its disposal, and it's
Yeah,
just got experience. You know, the a revolution is great when it works, and a
yeah,
revolution without backing, without stamina, without support is going to struggle against a big juggernaut like the Camarilla. And I think that that story is so fantastic. Like one of the great additions that I think that they've made is writing out the Sabbat, lessening the importance of the Sabbat, and really giving the Anarchs a lot more weight, showing that
yeah,
that push and pull between the two factions because they all kind of want the same thing. They all believe in the
yeah,
masquerade. They believe in the continuation of vampiric society. It's just what way they're taking to get there. So their
yeah,
similar ideologies create an interesting clash, an interesting story, because it's just like small government versus large government. You know, it's
yeah.
an argument that we still have to this very day in our own real society, but
One of
with
my
a supernatural
players,
bend.
one of my players was I don't know, they're playing anarchs. They never actually heard the tenets, like the rules of the Camarilla before. And finally somebody like listed them out to them and they're like, oh, like some of them seem a little bit harsh, but like we mostly do this anyway.
Yeah. We're already kind of I mean, they all make sense. They're all pretty
Right?
straightforward. We just don't want some nameless, faceless entity enforcing it. But if, like, we're going to do those things anyway for the most part. So, yeah, it absolutely
Exactly.
makes sense. Now, one of the things I also like about your setting that kind of reflects our own is that you don't just focus on vampire, you focus on hunter, you focus on mage. You were
Yes.
talking about wraith. How do you blend it all together? Do you run
Oh my god.
multiple splats at once, or do you just run a story within one splat and then move on to another splat, all kind of in the same world? How does it all work for you? I'm very fascinated by it.
I can't help but mix them together. I can't help but pick and pull this one and that one. My my first vampires in this Portland by night setting had their first encounter with a gangrel who was a kinfolk who had been turned, like, and was shunned by his pack, but the vampires still thought that he could like be a pawn for them to move the werewolves about. And I can't help but mix them all together, especially when my view of the Second Inquisition is that it has its roots in the technocracy. Like, I think that, you know, the events of the Week of Madness sort of kick somebody into high gear. And, when you've got to use four orbital lasers and a nuke or two to kill something, you might want to figure out where the problem is, nip that in the bud.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I like that it is so easily incorporated, that they do have crossover, that they didn't create these splats in a way to try and keep them all separated. They did make it feel like we're all part of the same world, even if we
Yeah.
come from different places like the Shadowlands or the incorporation of the Umbra, but there's some crossover between the Umbra and the Shadowlands that they
Oh,
do. They've created such a rich environment across the board.
I love it. I love it. I had two characters, one of which was a syndicate technocrat staring down a demon in the body of a doctor, of like a 60-year-old doctor, and both of them knowing how the universe started. Like capital K, knowing how the world works, and them being completely incompatible.
Yeah. Ah. Yeah,
And
it's
I just embrace it. Embrace it. That no, you two think that things happened different ways. Make sense of it your own damn self.
yeah,
You've
you're
got nobody to
taking your
ask in
own
character.
perspective on an event. Like we can all see the same event occur, like a
Yep.
car crash, for example. We can all see a car crash, but we're all going to have different memories of how it happened or different
Yep.
impressions of what caused it. And somewhere amidst all of that is the truth. Somewhere in the middle of all of it is the reality of the situation, and we're never going to have necessarily all of
And
the details.
and Mage is a game about perspective, and the and it takes the last bit of what you said, that there is a truth, and just says nah, no, I just never mind. Like no, there's no hardcore truth. It's all perspective.
Yeah, it's all just a matter of possibilities
Yeah,
and perspective. Yeah, it's
yeah,
it's fantastic that way. So you use primarily the fifth edition system, if I'm understanding correctly.
yes,
How do you
yes.
incorporate the unpublished material still? So we haven't gotten a fifth edition Mage yet. We haven't gotten a fifth edition Wraith, although fingers crossed,
Fingers
coming
crossed.
soon. How do you find a way to balance it? Because one of the biggest flaws about the older systems was there was no balance. Balance did not exist, despite the fact that they created a big
Yeah,
overarching world. They were like, no, you don't play mage and vampire side by side. You can't do that because it's
I
too
mean,
too different. You can, but it takes a lot of work on your end. But go
yeah.
ahead.
My solution to that is that you don't play a mage. Like, you can play something from the mage universe. Like, there's all sorts of critters you could play that could very well get along with a vampire.
That's true.
Like, no, a werewolf is probably not going to do a great job hanging around vampires, but maybe on an Aussie, the spider folk who drink blood anyway, maybe one of the risen, an embodied wraith. I had a Korax, of all things, a were raven hanging around with a bunch of vampires because he didn't know any better and he was traumatized by his first sunrise. So he hated the sun.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense, and I think that there is great opportunities for that. There is something that could potentially bind all of the different groups together, either individually or, in small collectives, because
Yeah,
I think everything is trying to survive. Like, I love the
yeah,
element or the idea that there is always something worse.
uh
You
huh,
know what I mean? There's always something more terrifying, more, predatory, more problematic, so that you can almost have little monster squad stories where you can
oh,
have a group of
absolutely,
vampires and a group of werewolves who are like, yeah, this is, we don't like each other. We definitely don't get along, but there's a mummy that just came into town and
yep,
it is causing complete chaos for all of us. So we have to find this kind of unified goal, and then we'll go back to hating each other once that's over. But for the
yep,
time being, we're gonna work together against this threat. and that's so well demonstrated in the lore. But speaking
Yeah.
of the lore, and I want to ask you about this, that's one of the most, I think, overwhelming elements for people who first discover World of Darkness. They're very intimidated by, especially when you start down the rabbit hole
Yep.
of White Wolf
Yep.
Wiki or anything like that. It can be very, very overwhelming. Like, I think you could get a doctorate in World of
Yeah.
Darkness lore alone.
Oh,
How
certainly.
how do you approach lore in your games? Do you try to incorporate a lot of the pre-written material, or do you just take inspiration from it and, use what you want and dispose of the rest? How do you use lore in your games?
So the core thing that I did is I went to the White Wolf Wiki and went to the dates category and went to the earliest one there was and started reading, and went to the next earliest date and started reading. And just everything that had a date on it, I marked it down on the timeline with a little note next to it. And I just got sort of a feel for how the history went. When the Order of Reason became the technocracy, when the antediluvians had their own cities and were destroyed by the flood, when the angels walked the earth in the age of wrath, and the utter incompatibility with the angels and most of the rest of the setting. The Demon the Fallen book is such a wrench thrown into the setting,
It is.
because it just sides really on the Judeo-Christian like mythos, and there's so many other perspectives to take on it,
Well, and
and sort
that's
of,
always been a weird, delicate line that they've walked. Like, they talk about Cain and Abel as the mythos that created vampires, but then they also want to bring in some like Middle Eastern traditions with the Banu Hakim, and they kind of are very vague, but it does tend to side more towards Judeo-Christian. It seems to be more influenced by that, at least in a lot of the older material. In the
yeah,
newer material, I feel like they've opened it up a lot more, and they've said nobody knows for sure, like, this has
yep,
been the story that we've been told, but like, it's never been proven, it's never been shown to its full completion. So yeah, but I agree with you. I feel like there is definitely a bend there, at least in the older material,
yeah,
towards a specific kind of belief system.
yeah. And I think that part of that has to do with, I think, the Order of Reasons and the precepts of Damien, and you know, uh, I think that there could be reasons if you dig deep enough and you're willing to write enough between the lines, uh, because it's talking to a primarily assumed Christian audience, or assumed that they have a Christian worldview or exposure to the Christian mythos, and that would be how most demons who any demon who inhabited the body of a Christian would interpret their past in the same way as the book says.
Right.
Uh, and I sort of just go for that approach, and that a demon who jumped into somebody else might have a different view through that prism.
For sure. For sure. And I think there are, across many cultures, across many belief systems, there's something that embodies something within the World of Darkness. Like, there's
Yeah,
different bends on vampires, there's different thoughts on demons, like these dark things that go bump in the night. There's some version of it, even if it goes by a different name or it
yep,
has a different kind of skill set or power base. It does still all align. So it's
yep,
cool that these things that they draw upon are kind of cross cultural things, even if a lot of the material does seem bent towards a specific culture. If you do your research, you can find ways to incorporate other cultural beliefs
yeah,
into it and really do make it a much more vast and open possibility. And
yep,
like you said, with some creative license going between the lines, you can make it make sense
Yep.
anywhere in any setting, and that is a unique talent to say the least. My next question would be, if you dove into the lore and kind of went through the timeline starting at the beginning and working closer and closer to the present, what's your favorite piece of lore or a favorite character from the lore that you just really find a connection to or just really enjoy reading about?
Uh, See, as far as fascinating individual characters, only one name really springs to mind, and that's Samuel Haight. Uh, just such a cross splat individual, such a screw you of a character. 100%.
You're telling me I can't be everything? I'm going to show you I can be everything in some capacity.
Yeah, but it's sort of like an inspiration. Like, I don't know, no, you power gamers, you are not the only power gamer out there, because there's a power gamer here right in the lore.
Well, and I love this almost seemingly joke of a character at times
Yeah,
still lasts to this day. Like in the Wraith the Oblivion VR game,
yeah,
there's
yep,
an ashtray with
an
hate written on it.
ashtray.
Like it's still so strongly remembered. It's one of the names I've heard the most from people, whether good, bad, or otherwise. It made an impression, and that says something, that
Yeah,
it can make that much of an impression, that it can be a name that pops out more than a Sasha Vikos or more than
yeah,
a Beckett. Like, people remember Samuel Haight for good, bad, or
yep,
otherwise.
good, bad, or otherwise.
That's an incredible feat, even if it did seem like a big middle finger to a lot of
Oh,
people.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. But I think that embodied a lot of the design decisions at the time, which was like, just like, screw you. If it's not actually hurting anybody, we're gonna go full tilt at it. Like,
Absolutely. And
and
you have always had the freedom to use it or not use it. You
yeah,
can ignore it. You don't have to
I would,
buy the book they're featured in. You don't have to endorse, like, it
yeah,
doesn't have to have anything other than what you want it to be. And I think
but
a
knowing
lot
that
of it's
it's
forgiven.
possible. Like, I don't know, I've really wanted to see a vampire use it to work backwards from the other way. Of, if a vampire could get one of the weird blood magics that let them control spirits, and if
True.
they could make a spirit perform the ritual of sacred rebirth and turn themselves into a werewolf from being a vampire.
Yeah,
I've,
absolutely.
I've wanted a player to try that one of these days. One of these days.
Now, shifting gears a little bit, there takes a certain degree of courage and confidence to become a storyteller, to make that leap from player to storyteller. I mean, being a player is already hard enough sometimes for certain people because it requires you to embody and like accentuate certain features of yourself and to maybe draw upon some things that you're less comfortable with or less familiar with. But to be a storyteller, you have to take it even further than that. And even another step further than that is to go professional. And I
Yep.
admire anyone who has the confidence, the courage, and the talent, just the raw talent, to be able to take it to that step. What was that journey like for you? You've clearly been doing this for a very long time, so it's a natural evolution to
Yeah.
be able to continue to evolve and grow. But what was kind of like the inspiration or the confidence boost that made you to decide to go professional and to start working with Start Playing? Because I just think it's so incredible for
Yeah.
anybody to do that, especially when it was something that in my formative years wasn't a thing. You
It
know,
wasn't a thing. And
yeah,
it was, that's part of it, is that I've been doing this for so long, and I've been doing so little else for so long. Like, I've been disabled since I was like 19. So like, I've had nothing but time. And I don't know, I've always wondered if I could, if I could be a DM for a job and just do that. But I don't know, I always felt bad, trying to ask players for money, because I'm doing this fun thing for my friends. Yeah, I'm the only person who will do it, but I mean, that's not true because I had other friends who would DM, but we always sort of came back to me, and that was one of the confidence boosts. Is I in the past half decade at least, have just recognized I'm a good DM. I'm a good storyteller. I run fun games that people want to be part of. And I urge everybody to check out my YouTube channel and be part of them as well, because I finally found a way to share it with everybody.
And I love that. Having watched some of your videos, like you can hear the passion and love in your players' voices for what you're creating. Like you can feel the enthusiasm, and the stories are so well put together. I love the way that you have put them into video format, because actual plays are fun, and obviously we have a lot of them here. But when you're staring at a bunch of people just sitting on screen, rolling dice and talking like
Yep,
they're at a table, that can get old really quick. But you have made it so that it could be something you listen to in the car. It could be something that you can digest in a variety of ways. I love the subtitles, because there's some of us who are like, what did they say? I didn't quite
exactly.
understand it. And they can go back and watch. I love the artwork that you incorporate into it. You put a scenery on it. It's such an easily digestible and like accessible experience
Yeah,
that makes it so much easier to get immersed into the story and immersed into the actual
yeah,
conversations without all the distractions that a lot of other experiences provide.
yeah. I would first of all just say that I would refer to it as AI imagery.
I love it. Yep.
I is not art. I have one player who is less comfortable with me using AI art for their profile picture, so I am setting some money aside and commissioning a profile picture for them,
Okay.
because I don't know, I could go into a long discussion with them about the ethics of AI art and all this stuff, or I could just put my money where my mouth is and say, here, I've got $120. Do you know any artists that you'd want to do your profile pic, or that I could just pay as a compensation for using AI art for your profile picture?
Fair.
Like,
That's fair. Yeah.
like I recognize I would pay for each and every image if I could, as it is. They're It's gorgeous imagery. I have so much fun generating it, making sure that it's all. I don't know. I'm a perfectionist a lot of the time when it comes to it. Just trying to make sure that these are images that I would be happy to put up, that
Sure.
I wouldn't immediately scoff at, and my own, I don't know, kind of art style that I've sort of added to it. I always do sort of impressionist paintings, and it's not the it's not the images that are art. It's the whole video.
Absolutely.
It's the story. It's the passion that the players put into it. It's chopping it up into 10 to 30 minute sections, so folks aren't staring at a 2 hour duration and being like, I do not have time for that, never will.
Well, and I love that it's creative and it's unique. Like you will remember, or viewers will remember your videos because they have a unique take on it. Like we talked to the creator of Port Saga, who did an audio drama of Vampire the Masquerade, a Vampire the Masquerade story, and that was unique. It was like an
Yeah,
audio book or a radio drama, but it's memorable, and I think that your
yeah.
videos are very memorable because they aren't what is the more standard way of doing it. I like
They're
that you
certainly
took
not anything I've ever seen before.
exactly.
I watch a lot of YouTube, and I wanted more than anything to make YouTube videos that I would watch.
Yeah.
So that's just the number one thing behind it. Just try to make things that I would watch, and I don't really care that nobody else has done this kind of format. I'm surprised that nobody else has. I wish I was better at editing, and I will get there eventually.
Practice
A
makes perfect. I could say that from
Exactly.
experience. Practice makes perfect. But it is another way to make the game more accessible to people too, because I know there are people who want to stream but aren't comfortable being on camera. There are people who want to participate in these kinds of stories and activities. This is a method that allows them to do so in a fashion that isn't, too invasive or too
Yeah,
pushing them into an uncomfort zone. Like they can just play, enjoy the game, and then be able to relive those moments and memories. Something that I know
exactly.
all of us as kids wish we could go back and hear recordings of ourselves playing some of the wild and crazy stories we told when we were first
Right?
starting out. So it's very, very just immersive in its own way, and it is unique, and I love unique things. I love when people take chances, try things, expand the medium, create new things, because that's going to be an inspiration. And I'm sure there are going to be others who see what you do and, in all
God, I would
fairness,
love to see
mimic it
more.
or create something like it, and take
Please.
inspiration from it. And it's great, it's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. Good artists borrow, great artists steal. The better term I heard recently was the perception of your creativity is directly proportional to the obscurity of your references.
Oh, I
And I'm
like
pretty
that.
obscure, so you'll be seen as pretty creative if you copy me.
Yeah, it's perfect. So what advice would you give? You've been through so much. You've really absorbed the material and become very knowledgeable about it. For somebody who's starting out, for somebody who's just discovering the world of darkness and maybe even discovering the idea of storytelling or dungeon mastering, what advice would you give them that you maybe had wished you'd had at the time, or maybe that you've learned over time? What would you tell them to try and encourage them, or show them that this is a direction worth pursuing?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think that you should treat it like improv. You should treat it like I don't know. I went through a huge phase where I barely used character sheets or the game systems at all. Just start telling a fun story and see where it goes. And if you run into a point where either you'd feel bad making a fiat decision or you're unsure of the outcome, then you look at the stuff. Then you look at the character sheet. Then you look at the rules and see what you need to do to resolve that. But it's story first. It's a good time with your friends and making new characters that can become friends with each other all over again is so much fun. The the most difficult part is the scheduling and just trying to keep everybody rankled and together for enough sessions to have that satisfying story. So
Yeah, scheduling is the bane of TTRPGs for sure. That is the biggest challenge to overcome. And
absolutely.
I think the concept of just if you're having fun, you're not doing it wrong. There is no way to do it wrong if you're walking away having fun. So whether you know the rules, don't know the rules, know the lore, don't know the lore, whatever you do, as long as everybody walks away from the experience having had an enjoyable time, that's really all that matters at the end of the day. Like, is that you had a night of fun with your friends or with some people you just met, whatever the case may be,
Yeah.
you have a memorable experience.
Rule zero: have a great time, have fun, and like yeah, but telling a memorable story is great, but it's not going to be the story you've got in your head. It's not going to be the story that you write down on day one because no story survives contact with players. Uh, my one of my favorite stories got sidetracked on a 6 real-time month uh, detour because my players decided to walk down an elevator, walk down like 60 flights of stairs instead of pushing a button. They got themselves trapped on post-apocalyptic Earth, and they were D&D characters. It was ridiculous, and they took like 6 months before I could finally find some bullshit way that could get them back to where they came from.
So aside from World of Darkness and D&D, are there other systems that you've explored or other systems that you want to explore that you haven't had the opportunity to yet? Like what game do you really, really badly want to try or learn that you haven't had the chance to yet?
Oh, so I mean, I've run a lot of different games, mostly D20 systems, some masterminds. I played Traveler 20, uh, but I gotta say, the one that the fish that got away, in my mind, is Continuum role playing in the Yet. It is inspired by World of Darkness, but it's about time travelers.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
It is utterly unplayable. like they had such a great idea, they had some good mechanics in there, but they didn't want to steal anybody else's dice system, so they ended up having just a really bad one and incomprehensible. It is completely unplayable. But I may have put together a smaller version where a storyteller and some players. The storyteller plays the role of a mentor who's teaching youngins how to time travel, and they roll up a list of known events because they, as the mentor, when they're starting their mentor, get visited by the older version of themselves and handed a list saying, these things happened while I was here. Make sure that they happen. And be prepared for them. And then the players are new time travelers. They don't know the rules. They don't know how any of this works. And the storyteller's job is to make sure that all of the events on this dossier, as what I call it, on the dossier, are completed. If it becomes impossible to complete the task, they start the mentor, the DM starts taking time damage until they die and the players win. The mentor wins if at least one of the players survives to the end to fulfill the entire dossier, and then that player becomes the next DM.
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. That's a really interesting way to make it very interactive and kind of go around the cycle and the circle of things. But it also encourages people to try it. I think that's one of the big things too, is like all that apprehension that people feel when approaching storytelling or DMing or anything like that. It can be so easily overcome if you just rip that band-aid off. Just rip it off and try it. Because I think that a lot of people get hooked. There are very few people that I've met who have tried storytelling and been like, not for me. I'm a player forever. Like, I think most people who try it end up enjoying it and getting inspired to try and do their own thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a passion of mine. This hobby, this art form, whatever it is.
This profession, because it is a profession.
I guess. Yeah.
You are a professional storyteller.
I am a professional storyteller, and I am really enjoying it so far. My first game was not recorded, and it was what I would call a mitigated disaster. It certainly taught me a lot about hosting for other people. I'd never hosted public games before for strangers, always friends of friends and that kind of thing. So I had to be a lot more specific with my session 0. And I don't know, because it's the world of darkness doesn't mean that we aren't people,
right.
that we don't have human sensibilities. And particularly in the case of certain kinds of assault, we have a metaphor here perfectly handy: a vampire. Like, if you want that kind of storyline to play out, we can have somebody pin you to a wall and put something hard in your neck.
Right.
Like we don't need to be explicit in our stories with this kind of thing, like, because we have such a good metaphor.
Yeah. Well, and that's the difficult thing, I think, that I've found in the world of darkness specifically. And it's honestly, it can happen in gaming across the board. Like, you can see it in D&D, you can see it in Call of Cthulhu or any kind of game. But I feel like World of Darkness has had a very checkered history because the content is extremely adult. It is extremely, it is touching upon things that a lot of people kind of choose to ignore or avoid. But it is very heavy material, and I
Yeah.
think that kind of material can bring out a certain element of people. It can, appeal to a certain variety of people that can make it a very difficult experience. But one of the things that I've felt has helped adjust that, helped fix that over time is the incorporation of and the continued use of safety tools and session zeros.
Yep.
I hadn't discovered safety tools or consent sheets or anything until probably 2-3 years ago during the pandemic or
Yep.
post-pandemic world. But I love that exists, especially when you do start bringing in other people. It's not your group of friends who you all have a
Yep.
strong understanding and respect for each other. It is this kind of outside X factor element. But I think that being so widely instituted and accepted now has helped decrease the number of those types of people, or at least single them out very quickly and help get them out of the situation.
Agree.
Or And I'm so glad that exists. When it comes to your storytelling and your, especially the professional end of things, how do you incorporate those kind of tools into your play, and what tools do you use?
Well, I personally have a session zero document that I'm constantly fiddling with and adding to, just as a, hey, I forgot to put this in last time. I need to put this in next time. I wasn't quite clear enough on this bit. Uh, but come in with a well thought out list for session zero. Heck, ask a robot if you need to.
It's true,
Check
it helps.
online. Uh, and don't skimp on the Monty Cook check consent checklist. I you think people are just going to be cool. Some people just can't be cool, and you never know who those people are going to be.
It's true.
And
Even your own friends. I mean, I've had friends surprise me. I'd be like, I didn't know you thought like that. I didn't know you felt like that. It's important to check in with everyone. Anybody
but
can surprise you.
I also think that it's very important to handle these things uh, consumer side, shall I say, that we as the consumers, as the customers, can pick and choose how dark we want this game. Like, if I want to go full pitch black, I have the book on Earthbound. Like, like we can go there, and I like that they go all the way there, that they go all the way to the black with the Black Spiral Dancers and the Earthbound, the Malfians, and just the utter horror
Mm-hmm.
that it can get to, that you can go as dark as you want. And one of my I don't like when it's taken out of the hands of the consumer,
Right.
when they try to non-canonize certain less than ideal, less than what's the word, less than compassionate, less than politically correct, I guess is the best term. Uh, Specifically with werewolves and the taking away of the kinfolk and the metis.
Right.
I think that they're I've listened to good arguments why not, and I understand the word is uh, is a slur. It is. And I think that they should have changed it, but kept the concept, because it was one of those darker, weird parts of Werewolf the Apocalypse that made it not just political. Because
Right.
I do love that it's political. It can't not be. Like, looking at the werewolves as a thing, like yeah, they're eco warriors, shall we say.
Yeah.
uh they take, and you can go as dark with that as you want. or you can leave it vague of like, I had a character in one of the Bonar packs whose parents were like, one was a Shadow Lord, the other was a Silver Fang, and now they're like, screw you guys, screw you to both of those tribes because they excommunicated both of their parents, so they joined the Bonars.
Yeah.
And I think that it can absolutely, it can absolutely be done tastefully and well, and that should be in our hands.
Well, I do appreciate that that's one of the things they did in Werewolf 5th edition is make it more of a choice, that it isn't, something that's necessarily genetic or that you're born into, but that it's something that you can choose. The patrons choose you, you choose the patrons, and that you can move between the tribes a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think that does create some cool storytelling opportunities. And going back to your previous point, like, I understand cultural, we want to be culturally accepting. We want to be understanding of people's preferences. I don't think we should just shy away from them and ignore them. I think we should see an opportunity to become better educated on them.
Yes.
And a lot of companies in this, cancel culture PC world, they just want to shy away from it, pretend it didn't exist, wipe it clean off the map, or avoid it altogether, instead of bringing in people who can educate, people who can tell us, why it's good, why it's bad, and help us grow and evolve and become more intelligent about these things instead of just hiding from them or avoiding them. We've made mistakes. World of Darkness has made mistakes. There's no question about that.
We saw them happen in real time.
Yeah, they should address those mistakes rather than try to sweep them under the rug, or bring in people that might have been affected by previous material and just have an honest conversation with them and say, like, what could we do differently? What can we take away from this, and just make it make it a dialogue, make it an educational moment, because one of the things I've always loved about World of Darkness is that it does delve into the deep, scary, sticky, icky stuff. Like, not just in the fact that we're playing monsters when we ourselves are people, but by the fact that it does touch on some very hot button issues, that it does address real life problems. It's not a game for escapism, that's for sure. If you're playing it right, like, you can get into some pretty scary stuff.
It's got one of the It's got one of the most controversial, one of the most controversial supplements in TTRPG history with Charnel Houses of Europe, the Showa.
Yeah.
Widely maligned by anybody who hasn't read it, and you read the damn thing, it is absolutely not glorifying or trivializing the Holocaust whatsoever. It is a Wraith game about trying to make sure people don't forget. And you can explore all of these darker themes and all of these. I personally wouldn't explore that one.
No. But there are other options. Like, there are other possibilities for sure.
And there are people who would find that extremely helpful, I'm sure, to explore that kind of words fail me. Hereditary damage.
Yeah.
The generational trauma.
Yes. Yeah.
There's so much there, and you can pick just anything out of it. And
Absolutely.
I've been really blessed to have players who take it seriously when it needs to be serious, and be funny when it needs to be funny, and trust me.
Yeah, trust is such an important part, from player to storyteller and storyteller back to player. Absolutely. And I think that having a good, solid group that you can explore these themes and elements with in a safe and controlled environment is so valuable.
Yeah.
Because we can't hide from what's happened. We can't hide from what's happening. We can't hide from what's going to happen. Like, these things are very real, and ignorance solves nothing. Awareness is what solves things, and really having those deep and difficult conversations. And I think this is a great medium to do it in, because it is, again, it can be controlled, it can be safe, and it can be informative.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
on a lighter note, let's shift gears and talk about Rose City and beyond. Let's talk about this setting that you've created and this world you've created. Take us through kind of our own timeline for those of us who are
Ah,
catching up and learning about it. Tell us, when Rose City began, what was the first chronicle you ran in it, and how it's developed and evolved over time.
well, it started a couple of years ago when I ran Vampire the Masquerade game and really got the whole setting sort of the bones set in place. I played a really like a year long campaign with just some ridiculous characters. But we started the game in timeline in 1995 when the prior Baron disappeared, and really trying to figure out which direction things are moving and trying to sort of that party went through a lot of the different splats, went through a lot of the different areas so that I can sort of have them interact and flesh out all of the corners of the map. Uh, it was only sort of recently that I started recording the sessions. And so I was looking for a good break because we ran that really successful Portland by Night campaign and then took a break to run some D&D for a while, ran a really cool D&D game based on Made in Abyss, the anime, where they were just trying to delve into this interdimensional pit, and it got really weird really fast. It was great. But I waited for. I kept working on the Portland by Night sort of campaign, the world map, and waiting for a lull, waiting for sort of that campaign to end so that I could sort of sweep in at that point and be like, all right, everybody, I've got this new thing. And I didn't want to start out with Portland by Night. A, because it was the same crew that had done the previous one. And if I'm going to start recording a new story, I want to at least have some players who are new to it, who can be like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? When some of our players pull out their inside jokes and have somebody to actually explain the thing to. And I took a bit of a wild swing and tried a system I've never run before, Mage the Ascension. I've always heard about it. I've always been a little bit afraid to play it because, balance, what's that? And it went. It went. It started moving as a campaign does, and I tend to, give an initial shove, and then the players start running with the ball. And it went so well that I I'd started recording it, and I hadn't started posting any of it yet, but it was going so well that I decided to start trying and decided to start up the startplaying.games. I'd heard of it for a while, and I don't know, there was always just that hesitance. The the pride versus the pride versus the humility.
Yeah. Well, and
Because
it's like I said, it takes a lot of courage to do something like that and a lot of confidence to say, I am going to, because it is a lot of work. I think people take for
yeah,
granted that this isn't This is a game, sure. It's a hobby, sure. But I've seen people put as much work into their campaigns as they put into their jobs, if not more so. And it is a source of entertainment. I mean, the amount of
Yeah,
money people will play to go watch people kick a ball around, or people will
right?
pay to go do other activities. Why wouldn't this qualify? It's an interactive entertainment experience that is, could be on par or even rival things that people spend hundreds of dollars to do or to
Exactly.
enjoy. And
The
yeah,
the argument that I think that got me the best was, uh, come on, $20. People go out to the movies for
that's
20 bucks,
for
for more than 20
concessions. That's
bucks.
just concessions for a movie
That's
these days.
exactly,
Yep.
exactly. So charging $20 per person for, 2 for 3, 4 hours of my time, I think
Absolutely.
that's actually a pretty good deal. And if I've got 4 players, then that actually makes it worth. I mean, it was already going to be worth my time, but it feels like it's worth charging for, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
and if I was charging less, then why bother?
Right. Well, and I remember back in the day, like back in my teens, which was a very, very long time ago, you'd bring the snacks. Like everybody had a role at
Yep.
the table. So even if it wasn't cold hard cash, everybody had a role. Someone provided the venues, someone provided the games, someone provided the snacks. And now with things like Start Playing, which allow us to connect virtually to each other, those aren't as necessarily required, but that
Yeah.
same effort should go in. Everybody should bring something to the table, and sometimes money is the best possibility. It's the best option
Yeah.
because there's a lot of setup, there's a lot of planning, there's a lot of preparation that goes into it. And you wouldn't not pay for a ticket to the
Yeah.
theater, you wouldn't not pay for a sports game. uh
Exactly.
like, so why not this as well? And you can always say no. If nobody's forcing you to sign up for games, but if that's something you're
Exactly.
looking for, then why not?
Exactly. Like, and I don't know. I think that the YouTube was just a natural extension of that because,
Yeah,
like, you don't know if you want to play one of my games, go check out my YouTube channel. Like you'll see how I run things,
absolutely.
and you'll be able to see your games forever. You can watch for free, or you can pay to play.
So what can you tell us about your current ongoing campaign that we can see on YouTube, because I'm sure you're going to get a bunch of viewers
Yes.
from this that are going to head over there and take a look. What can you tell us about the current story that's going on? What splatter are you using? Can you tell us a
Yes.
little bit about the characters? Like, what's happening in that current game?
Well, I've got 2 running right now. There's the Rose City at Twilight Mage, which is a group of uh, a technocrat conspiracy theorist and a really strange private detective just trying to escort a VIP into a reality exclusion zone. In reality, their boss wants their fuck toy to go get his stuff back from the college dorm that recently was exposed to some nuclear radiation for reasons.
Reasons.
Reed College nearby actually does have a nuclear reactor. There's also there's a nearby Kelly Butte has a nuclear bunker built into it. Neither here nor there for now. Uh,
But it's an
but the
interesting way to tie in the culture and the history and the reality of the situation. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah, in the Portland by Night game, we've got our protagonists. We've got a caitiff who was recently turned, very reminiscent of the Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines origin, and a caitiff who's much more experienced, who went through that years ago, and is trying to keep him from getting caught by the camp, bringing him out to the anarchs on the edge of town to ingratiate themselves at the request of his benefactor. Uh, the caitiff has a mysterious benefactor who's known as the Toreador Tactician, who is the brains behind the war effort. But she has her eye on all sides. This is in fact a 4-way war between the Camarilla, the Anarchs, the Sabbat, and the werewolves.
Fantastic. Yeah, so for those who are interested and want to catch up on Rose City and beyond, You can head over to youtube.com/@RoseCityAndBeyond. There is so much content. There's so many videos to absorb and enjoy. And I've got to tell you, it is, like I said, one of the most unique viewing experiences. And you can throw in a pair of, earbuds and walk around the house while the video is playing, and you can still enjoy the story just as much as if you're watching it. And that's one thing that I think is so great about it. It is so accessible in so many mediums. So I definitely encourage everyone to head on over and give a subscription to Rose City and Beyond, youtube.com/Rose City and Beyond, because there are so many options available to you there. The next thing I want to talk about is your upcoming Hunter game that you're getting some people together for. You've got the Rose City Twilight Hunter campaign that you're starting on startplaying.com. I want you to give your sales pitch. Let's try and get you some players and get that table full. So what can people look forward to or potentially be, hooked by or
Oh yeah.
convinced by? What can you tell us about that story and getting people to sit at that table?
Yeah. Well, when it goes back to trust with those players, one time they let me just play a game without telling them what system it was. And I ran the first session, and near the end of the first session, one of the players goes, "Damn, this would make a really good Hunter the Reckoning game." At which point I pulled out the book.
Surprise!
Surprise! This is what we got. This is not modern Hunter. This is back in the days before hacking. This is gonna be a tough one. Someone you love went missing. You didn't like the answers. You met something you really shouldn't have and barely got away. You knew something was out there all along, but only now found people that'll listen. This is a mortal, an average person in the late 90s, those characteristically optimistic late 90s, who got a cold splash of water from the world of darkness. Just a moment pushed below the surface. And now, will they swim? Will they drown? Or will they hunt?
That is fantastic. And so we're going to include this link down in the description because it's a little bit harder to read, but you can join the game on the page you see right now in front of you. It's startplaying.games/adventure/ we'll have the link down below. I'm not going to list all the characters, but you should go join this game. It's $20 a session. It's weekly on Saturdays, and it's set in the year 1997. So if you want a little bit of nostalgia, if you want to experience the world through a new lens, this is a fantastic opportunity to do so, and it's a great way to support our magnificent guest and just get involved. Who knows? You too could end up in a recording. You too could become a part of this grand world that has been formed. And Hunter the Reckoning is one of those systems that I feel like is highly, highly underrated. So if you like things like Supernatural, if you like things like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, if you like things across that spectrum, this is your opportunity to get involved in this already well-formed world, this well-detailed world, and make your mark on Rose City. As we're getting towards the end here, I have some rapid-fire questions, some lightning round questions I'd like to ask you. That being, one, what's your favorite clan?
Daughters of Cacophony.
Ooh, good one. What is a clan you've always wanted to play as a player? Because obviously as storytellers we can play every clan. But as a player, what is a clan you've wanted to play but never had the opportunity to before?
Salubri.
That's
I think
the
the one-eyed healers.
That's a good one. What is, in your mind, the most overrated clan?
Ooh. I'm gonna have to say Bruja.
Okay.
That's got to be the most overrated. They're just stereotypical anarchs. Being an anarch Bruja is like being a human fighter in D&D. It's like, come on.
Well, that's a perfect question, because that leads me to your next one. What's your favorite class in D&D?
See, I always loved sorcerers until I learned how to do prepared spell casting, and then I couldn't ever not do wizards. I just always got to have a spell for everything. Utility is my favorite.
Well, I'm glad you talked about casting, because what's your favorite mage house?
Oh, I mean, is it really a mage house? Sons of Ether.
Okay.
Although I am
Some
also,
deep
of course, a
cuts. You're
fan.
going for some deep cuts here. I like it.
Also a fan of the Cult of Ecstasy, the Sahidagia. I don't
Okay.
remember. Anyway, the Cult of Ecstasy, also a
Eh,
fun mage house.
That is a fun mage house. What is your favorite werewolf tribe?
Ooh, I mean, it's gonna have to be the Bone Gnars because I was homeless for like 8 years, living in the forest and on the streets, and that trash punk aesthetic is just like, yes, give me a trash bag of holding. Like
Absolutely.
I've got a pack leader named Taco Bell, and she is sweet and she'll rip your head off.
I love it. What's your go-to auspice?
Oh, go to Auspice. I for me, I gotta be Ragabash. I'm just the trickster
Ah,
type.
Bonar Ragabash. It's a perfect combination. I like that a lot. What about your favorite hunter creed?
Ooh, the Wayward. They they are something else. The neglected, the corrupted war leaders of the imbuing, the lost creed. I don't know. It's. I haven't had much of a chance to look into the H5 stuff yet, so I'm mostly talking about the
No, for
old Hunter
sure.
the Reckoning.
Yeah.
But the Waywards being unable to turn their spirit vision off, unable to not see the world of darkness around them, and to be able to force that vision onto others and be like, no, no, seriously, guys, they're here.
Yeah, there's some stuff in H5 that still draws upon that, so you're not going to lose too many steps
Yeah.
making the transition to that because there are stuff that allows you to sense
Uh-huh.
that kind of stuff around you, and
Well, I mean,
it's
it's
wonderful.
1997. The viewing doesn't happen until 1999. So like I'm gonna try to stick by the H5 stuff. There's not gonna be the supernatural edges given by the messengers, at least not for a couple
Crazy,
of years.
yeah. Yeah, at least for a while. Maybe you'll start to incorporate that.
Uh-huh.
Well, I gotta say this has been fantastic, and I've really enjoyed having this conversation with you. And I'm so inspired by the work you do over on Rose City. Like that's amazing. One, that you're tackling a different time period and trying to do a full epic chronicle overall that takes you all the way back from the 90s to the current day while still acknowledging the materials that have come out, the end of the world stuff, the differences in the editions, but that you are taking it on. It is such an admirable thing, and it's
How
wow,
do you
what a
square that
lot of work.
circle?
Yeah.
How do you square that circle? Tune in
Uh,
to find out.
it's such a fantastic effort, and I'm really really in awe of it all. So I can't encourage enough people to go over and check out what you're doing, to go join your tables, to support you, because you are so creative and so talented and so bold. Like, and I mean bold in the best possible way, because this is not easy. If everybody could do it, none of us would. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it takes a certain type of person to really take that leap, to make it happen, and to be successful at it. And I think you deserve all of the credit in the world for it. And thank you, as
Well,
somebody who
thank you.
wants to see the world of darkness continue and succeed. To see products like yours coming out, it makes it a safe place, it makes it an accessible place, but it still hits all of those nice creative edges and
Yep.
scratches all those itches for those of us who are love to be entertained by horror and have been fans of the world of darkness for over 30 years. It's nice to see it alive and well, when for a long time a lot of us thought it wasn't going to be, but that
Uh,
it's still going is such a beautiful beautiful thing. And you're one of the people I thank for that, because it's
Thank you.
so great to see. Did you have any final thoughts or any final things you want to plug or pitch here before we say goodnight?
Just check out my Start Playing Games. I've also got a Patreon at Rose City and Beyond, and I've got a Buy Me a Coffee at Rose City and Beyond. I just set them up, so I don't know if they work. Somebody try it and let me know.
Yeah,
I'll find out if somebody tries it.
absolutely. So yes, go follow Rose City and Beyond, and obviously go follow St. Pete. If you're new here, go follow
Yeah.
St. Pete by Night on all of the social media listed down below. We also have a join link for our Discord, where you can get involved in one-shots, ongoing campaigns and tables, or just to be a part of community and talk about the things that you love and enjoy about the TTRPG community. But for my wonderful, amazing guest, Desdemona, I am Kent. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week. We got a lot of programming, so go check that schedule, because who knows what you might stumble upon, whether it's a hunter campaign, a vampire campaign, a werewolf campaign. We've got stuff airing all the time. But thank you,
Check it out.
Desdemona, for joining us, and we'll see you all next time. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.